I first caught sight of Mia one muggy summer evening at a friend's birthday party, the kind of night that felt sticky and laughter drifted in on breezes scratching through backyards. She wasn't a show-off, but somehow, whatever she was doing, it seemed she had the spotlight. Her laughter was just one of those things you couldn't ignore, and the moment I saw her smiling back at me over the fire pit, something invisible shifted. We talked all night, on books, travel, and dumb childhood anecdotes. Time was slipping away from us like sand. By the time we said goodbye, two things were clear. I hadn't laughed that much in years, and I had to see her again. That night became a weekend, then a month. We quickly had a couch, jokes, and whispered dreams in bed about the life we'd share with the other person. It was a connection that I believed no amount of friction could hurt, as if we had always been and were only just discovering each other. 2 years in, I proposed. It wasn't too over the top, so it was just us out there on a very private cliff that looked out over the ocean. Tears were rolling down her face when I put the ring onto her shaking finger. It was one of those times when life was perfect, complete. We jumped right into wedding planning. She dreamed of a garden ceremony. I dreamt of a jazz band. We made concessions, cried with laughter, and waxed longingly about our futures over wine and spread-out seating charts. It was all coming together, at last. We were making something powerful and true, or at least I felt that we were. She came up with the idea of having a bachelorette party. Vegas, a few buddies, one weekend of debauchery, married life, as she put it. I didn't question it. I trusted her, blindly. Days after she returned, I got home early from a work trip I had to cancel and wanted to surprise her with her favorite takeout and some us time. What I wasn't expecting was a sparkle pink bag at the door, complete with a bow, and then a tag that read, "To Mia, from your wild ride or die, Tasha." I picked it up, and I smiled at first. Party favors left over, I figured. A dumb keepsake from their girls' spread. It was filled with glow sticks, sparkly shot glasses, and a faux veil. Buried at the very bottom, beneath the giggling plastic trinkets, was a pair of worn men's boxers and a flash drive. My hands trembled. The urge to press it open seemed unnatural, but curiosity hooked its claws in my mind. I sat down, inserted the drive into my laptop, and braced myself. At least to begin, it was all pedestrian party stuff. Mia, dancing in a club, free drinks, friends, and wild laughter. But then came something else, a more wobbly video than the others. It was Mia kissing a guy at the bar. A long kiss, not the playful kind. The camera cut away as she pulled him out of frame by the hand. Another clip caught her walking down the hall of a hotel room, this time with 2 other guys. They were touching and laughing at her, and she didn't resist. She welcomed it. Then, the scene bravely over, all 3 were swallowed up together in a hotel room in the thankfully short, concluding clip. The door closed. I continued to stare at the screen long after the video had blacked out. I hummed it back once, maybe twice, half joking to myself at first that I must have been imagining things. Perhaps it was an elaborate practical joke, a sick joke. Yet no matter how I turned it, the truth stayed unshakable. She cheated. Not a kiss at a bar, not a drunken mistake. She brought up 3 randos to her hotel on a weekend that was supposed to be our time to be halfway. That was no error in judgment. It was a choice. An intentional, unforgivable act. I didn't cry. Not at first. I sat there wooden, like I'd been hollowed out. My eyes blurred as I looked at the ring I had given her, which she had worn with such bright pride. I took it off her dresser and placed it beside my own and began to pack my first bag. I didn't leave a note. I didn't call or text. I fled that house like a man escaping the scene of a crime. There was nothing to salvage. I blasted out for hours, not knowing where I was going until I emerged at a sequestered beach resort 2 states down. The receptionist shot me a look of clandestine concern after I asked for the most private room they offered. I suppose she could tell I wasn't running from the sound. I was running from the betrayal. Days passed in a fog. I called off the wedding, one phone call at a time. The florist, the photographer, the venue. There was a small funeral for the life I thought I had in every interaction. I didn't explain why. I just said it wasn't going to happen. Finally, I called Mia's parents. They adored me. From the moment I entered their lives, they treated me as a son. They answered the phone happily, assuming I was confirming the last-minute wedding details. When I told them why the wedding was off, there was silence. I didn't raise my voice. I was just telling them what I saw. At first, her father thought it was impossible. Her mother cried. I was like, "You go talk to Tasha if you need proof." I hung up before they could even answer. I would learn later that same day they had confronted Mia. She confessed, or at least didn't deny it. They kicked her out. Her mother has told her she may not return until she can meet them, head held high instead of hunched in shame. And the one woman who had raised her to be graceful, loyal, and honest was the same woman who'd just looked at her and couldn't stand what she saw. Her two best friends, Tasha and Rachel, did not speak to her either. News travels as it does. Part of the video was leaked on the internet. Was it Tasha or someone else with the party? I never knew. But the fallout was swift. Her job in public relations, where image is crucial, did not live through the scandal. She was quietly set free a week later. There was no explanation, but everyone knew. Her face had become associated with too much noise, with too much wrong. She moved in with a cousin across town. No job, no friends, no fiancé. She tried to call me, left voicemails, sent emails. Sorry, I hurt you. I didn't mean to. It was just let me go. Blame not me. It wasn't me. But it was, and I'm sorry. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking. It didn't mean anything. As if that mattered, as if asserting that she was crazy somehow made it all okay. But it wasn't madness. It was betrayal. It wasn't a big accident that led her there, but rather a series of very deliberate choices. To that room, to that moment. I never answered. Not so much to speak about what she did, but to work my way back from the carnage. I wasn't mourning her. I mourned for the future that I'd imagined, the future that would never be. There were nights when I would awaken and not be able to go back to sleep. Nights I cursed myself for still loving her laugh. How she danced for us barefoot in our kitchen. Love doesn't die cleanly. It unravels like thread, gradually, painfully. But I kept going, one day at a time. I picked up old hobbies, got back in touch with friends I abandoned during the engagement. I was a different person before her. I used to be someone else before her. And, by slow degrees, I was starting to be him again. But one morning, months later, I wrote her a letter. The letter that I will never send. I gave her everything I never could say to her face. That I had loved her more than I know what love is. Not only did she break my heart, she broke my belief in us. That I knew she had found peace, but not with me. I folded the letter and placed it in my desk. I haven't seen her since. The last I heard, she's still trying to heal, but nothing is the same, obviously. Her reputation lies in ruins, her social circle is non-existent, and the girl who once twinkled now trundles along with her head facing the floor. Some accused me of being cruel for vanishing without a word, for refusing to let her explain. But sometimes wrapping stories up also means confronting them. Sometimes the press release with the most impact is the one you never had to write. I chose peace, and peace finally chose me. Amy and I, John Stevens, have been married for 12 years. She is 38, I am 43. Amy had been divorced for 2 years when we met. We dated for about a year, and then got married in a quiet civil ceremony before a justice of the peace. The only guest was Nicole, her daughter, who was 5 at the time. Amy's ex-husband, Ron, a truck driver, whom she divorced after catching him with a female truck driver. After the divorce, he married that woman. They bought their own truck, and now they work together on long-haul routes. They come to our town about twice a year for a few days to see Nicole. He seems like a decent guy and never misses a child support payment. Nicole has told me that she likes his visits, but she considers me her father. Of course, being the stepfather of a lovely 17-year-old girl has its challenges. Although we usually get along pretty well, she is still a teenager and attracts a lot of attention from teenage boys. Just because I'm her stepfather doesn't mean I care any less about my little girl. I had to give a couple of jerks who came to check her out a stern talking to, which upset Nicole. But a father has to do what a father has to do. Nicole is an excellent student and a good athlete. I was happy to buy her a car for her 16th birthday, not only because she deserved it, but also because it freed Amy and me from having to drive her to her extracurricular activities. Amy had been working part-time, and when Nicole got her car, she decided to go back to work full-time. I wasn't thrilled about the idea, but her extra income would be a big help to Nicole in saving for college, so I supported her decision. Shortly after returning to work full-time, Amy was invited to a bachelorette party with her co-workers. The girls liked to go out on Friday nights and usually went to Jimmy's, a local cafe and bar with good food and live music. It wasn't a nightclub that attracted crowds of young people. The atmosphere was much more subdued. Amy and her 5 colleagues usually attracted the attention of the guys at Jimmy's. 2 of the girls were single, around 25 years old, beautiful, and they went out every Friday night. The other 3 were young, married mothers of average appearance. At 38, Amy was the oldest of the ladies, but years of working out at the gym had kept her in as good shape as the 2 young beauties in her company. The 4 married women didn't go out every weekend, but they usually accompanied the younger girls once a month. Their evening usually consisted of light snacks and a couple of drinks. All the women were invited to dance, and the married ladies usually agreed to 1 or 2 dances per evening. The 4 moms rarely stayed past 10 and never past 11. The girls' night out began when one of the young women broke her knee while skiing and didn't want to go to Jimmy's on crutches. Gail, one of the mothers, invited everyone to her house. The ladies liked the more cozy and comfortable atmosphere and decided to continue the girls' night out instead of going out on the town. About 3 years later, it was Amy's turn to host the bachelorette party for the 4th time. I had been home for all the previous gatherings and ended up serving as the waiter and bartender while the ladies sat in our living room. The girls usually drank quite a lot and could get a little frisky by the end of the evening. After getting slapped on the butt a few times while bringing drinks, I tried to keep my distance from them as the evening progressed. To do this, I took my laptop to the dining room and started looking through the quarterly reports. The dining room is at the opposite end of our house, away from the ladies. I barely heard Amy call me to bring her some more wine. The wine cooler is in the dining room, so I grabbed a bottle of her favorite white wine, opened it, and brought it to her. I poured a couple of glasses, and Ginny, the youngest of the group, said, "Amy, your servant is very handsome. Does he only pour wine, or does he provide other services?" Amy laughed and replied, "That old man is probably older than your father." Ginny looked me up and down and said, "It's okay. I've always been a daddy's girl." I must have blushed bright red because all the ladies laughed loudly. I winked at Ginny, straightened up, and returned to the dining room with the empty wine bottle in my hand. I grabbed my laptop and quietly went upstairs to my bedroom. The doorbell rang, signaling that someone had arrived. I wondered who could be coming to the party so late, but then the camera showed that it was Nicole. I got up and went downstairs to greet her. She walked through the door, dragging a large canvas bag full of laundry behind her. "Hi, sweetie. Why are you home? We weren't expecting you back for a few more weeks." "The pipes burst in my dorm and we got flooded. We'll be studying remotely until they fix it. I think it'll be closer to the end of the semester, so I'm here." "Welcome home, dear. Your mom is hosting GNI tonight. I'm sure they'd love to have you join them. I'll hide in my room." Nicole laughed. "I was just about to lie down, but a glass of wine is a great idea. I'll go say hi to everyone." She kissed me on the cheek and ran to the ladies, and I went upstairs. In the morning, I was alone in the kitchen. The girls were still asleep. I was drinking my second cup of coffee when Nicole came into the kitchen. "Good morning, sunshine. I baked cinnamon rolls. They're in the oven and should still be warm." "Thanks, Dad," she said in a tired voice. She took her coffee and a bun and sat down at the table. She was unusually quiet, and after a few unsuccessful attempts to strike up a conversation, I realized that something was bothering her. "Nicole, is something wrong, sweetie?" She fidgeted nervously in her chair, and I could see she was struggling with some decision. "Dad, She turned away, looked at the stairs, then turned back to me. "Last night I heard something that upset me. I didn't know if I should say anything, but, well, Ginny was pretty drunk last night and she was talking about you and Mom the whole time." "Oh, honey, she was drunk and just fooling around. Please don't let her words about me upset you." At first I thought it was funny. She kept talking about how sexy you are and how she wants to be with a selfless man at least once in her life, not just another young guy who uses her and dumps her. She said she was jealous of my mom because she told her that I always make sure she gets what she wants when we're together. "Oh my God, baby, I'm so sorry you heard that about me and your mom. I didn't know Amy talked about our personal life when she was with her friends. I'm sure it was embarrassing for you to hear." She laughed. "Yeah, well, it didn't bother me too much because, well, girls talk, so it didn't matter until—" "What? Your mom said something bad about us? Oh, baby, they were drunk. I'm so sorry." "No, Dad, it was Ginny. She said it wasn't fair that Mom got you and her ex." I fell silent. My brain was trying to process what Nicole had just said. "But Ron was years ago. Ginny doesn't know him. I mean, how could she?" "Dad, didn't Mom tell you? Ron sold his truck and now works as a dispatcher at Fleetside Logistics. He and Diane moved here a few months ago." I was stunned. No, she didn't say anything. But still, how does Ginny know Ron? Wasn't he at Amy's office? He must have come to see Amy, and she introduced him to Ginny as her ex. "I don't know, Dad. Maybe it's the wine, but I thought Ginny was hinting at something. I just laughed along with everyone else, but it bothered me." "Okay, honey, don't worry about it. I'm sure it's nothing. I'll talk to Amy. Want another muffin?" I put another muffin on her plate and put the rest back in the oven. We chatted about school and how her remote classes were going. She said she would have to go back to the university to take her exams, but the rest of her classes would be online. "Well, I have a lot of work to do in the yard today. Do you have any plans?" "I'm going to start the laundry, then call Heather and see what she's up to. Haven't seen her in a while." Oh, I remember Heather. An image of a sexy teenager pops into my head. "I haven't seen her since you had that pool party." "Dad, what's that smile about? Are you thinking about her white bikini?" Busted. Well, she looked really cute in that swimsuit." "Dad, don't be a pervert. She was only 18 then, and now she's 21. None of us look like schoolgirls anymore," she said and laughed. I finished mowing the lawn and went into the house to get a drink of water. Amy was sitting at the table sipping her coffee. She looked up when I entered the room. "Did the mower wake you up?" "Yes, but I had to get up anyway. My goodness, I drank too much last night. I can't imagine how Ginny, Ellen, and Mary are today." I just nodded and finished my water. "Well, I need to finish mowing the rest of the yard," I said, turning and walking out the back door. As I mowed, I thought about what Nicole had said and what it meant. It was strange that Amy hadn't mentioned that Ron was back in town and working only a mile from her office. Worse, he could have stopped by her office, maybe asked her out to lunch, and she hadn't told me. Obviously, I needed to talk to her about Ron and why she hadn't told me about their relationship. I finished and went into the house to take a much-needed shower. Amy was dressed and sitting in the living room sipping coffee. Her hair was still wet from her shower. "Are you done mowing?" "Yes. Now I need to take a shower," I replied, climbing the stairs. After my shower, I opened the bathroom door and saw Amy sitting on one of the small chairs by our bedroom window. She had a magazine on her lap, which she closed when she looked up at me. As I walked out, I wrapped a towel around my waist and held it with one hand. I didn't pay any attention to her and walked over to the dresser. "There's my handsome man. Do you need help drying off?" 2 days ago, such a flirtatious invitation would have led to a quick fling, but today I responded with only a grunt. I threw down the towel and pulled on my boxers. Amy just stared at me as I put on a t-shirt and shorts. "John, are you okay? Is something wrong?" I studied her face from another chair. "We have a problem. I think you're hiding something from me and I want to know what's going on." Amy's mouth opened like a fish, and she tried hard not to scream. It took her a few seconds to collect her thoughts. "I'm hiding something? What do you mean?" "Nicole told me that Ron and Diane are back in town. She said that Ginny mentioned him last night, so she obviously saw him. Can you explain to me how your co-worker met your ex-husband?" "John, I thought I told you they were back. At least I thought I did. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're back or not, does it?" "It matters to me because you didn't tell me you saw Ron. It matters to me because you must have introduced him to Ginny and didn't bother to tell me you saw him. It matters to me because I think you didn't want me to know he was back, and I want to know why you didn't want me to know he was here." No, I thought I told you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hide anything. Ginny and I ran into Ron by chance when we went to Barron's for lunch a few months ago. He was there with a colleague, and we ended up at the same table." "And how many times have you seen Ron since he came back to town?" "Well, I had lunch with him a couple of times, and when I went to Joe's bar with the girls after work, he was there with his colleague." "So he knew in advance that you'd be at Joe's with the girls, or was it just a coincidence?" "I swear I didn't tell him, but maybe Ginny told Dave, his colleague." "John, it's nothing. There's nothing between us. We're just friends, nothing more." "Then why did you hide it from me? Does Diana know you've been spending time together? Or is Ron hiding something from his wife, too?" "John, please. I don't know if he told Diana. Honey, you're putting too much into this. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I just didn't think it was important. I promise I'll tell you if I see him again." I just stared at her, trying to read her face. She seemed sincere, but she had managed to hide her actions from me for several months. Maybe she was telling the truth, but my gut told me she wasn't being completely honest with me. I decided not to tell Nicole what I had heard from Ginny because I didn't want to get her involved in this mess. I shook my head slowly. "Amy, I don't like this. I can't help thinking that you deliberately hid this from me, and I have to ask myself why you felt the need to do that." "Oh, baby, I'm sorry I upset you. I understand why you're upset, but Ron is just an old friend to me, nothing more." "Amy, you were married to this man. You slept with him for several years and had a child with him. That's a lot more than just an old friend. Look, you know I'm not usually the jealous type, but this whole situation is bothering me." "I'm sorry. You're right, I was insensitive to you. I promise I'll keep you in the loop about what I'm doing." I nodded, ending the conversation. I still wasn't sure she was being completely honest with me. For the first time in our relationship, I doubted my wife's fidelity. I stood up, and she hugged me. I hugged her back and kissed her on the top of her head. I let her go and told her I was going to the hardware store and would be back in an hour or so. I was upset, and she knew it. I had no proof that she had done anything more than she had admitted, but my questions made it clear to her that I now suspected her. I believed that this would make her rethink her actions. I was concerned about whether she would now make every effort to be completely honest with Ron, or would she become much more careful about hiding her relationship with her ex-husband. Things were a bit cold at home over the next week. I tried to act normal, but I'm not a great actor. Amy tried really hard to get me to relax and forget what she had done. She skipped after-work drinks with her co-workers and called me to suggest we meet at a quiet cafe near my office. We had a drink and dinner. She talked about work and asked about my latest project. The evening was quite pleasant, and when we got home, she pulled me into the bedroom. Amy was in the shower, and I was sitting in a chair drinking a beer when Nicole came downstairs. Judging by the noise, it sounds like you two are back to normal. I probably blushed a little when I laughed. I guess so. She's trying to keep me in the loop and seems to be avoiding secret meetings with Ron. She even skipped meeting her friends after work to have dinner with me. Hey, that's great. Maybe Ginny just got drunk and that's all. Dad, I know Mom loves you. We both do. Thanks, sweetheart. I love you too. Oh, by the way, I'm going to dinner at Ron and Diane's tomorrow night. Diane called me this morning. She said Ginny told her I was home. It seems Ginny is dating one of Ron's co-workers, and they were at Ron's house a couple of days ago. Oh? I seem to remember Amy saying something about Ginny and Ron's co-worker. I think she called him Dave or Dan, I'm not sure. Well, I guess I'll find out tomorrow because they're supposed to be there too. At that moment, Amy came down the stairs. Nicole smiled guiltily at her and said, "Well, now that it's quiet upstairs, I'm going to go finish my homework." Amy laughed and replied, "You have about 2 hours before I drag him back upstairs and start all over again." "Oh my God, Mom! Too much information, too much information!" Nicole shouted as she ran up the stairs. I smiled at Amy. "I thought it was Dad's job to embarrass the kids." "No, it's 2023. Moms can do that too," she said, laughing. A few days later, Nicole told me she had a good time with Ron and Diane. She said Dave told her she was a lot like her mom. He then explained that he had met Amy on the same day he met Ginny. It was when he and Ron had bumped into them at the Baron and ended up at the same table for lunch. Nicole said that Diane was a little surprised by this and remarked that she didn't know Ginny worked with her mom. I thought about what she had told me. At least his story matched what Amy had told me about her lunch with them. It was interesting that Ron might not have told Diane about meeting Amy. Why were they both trying to hide their chance encounter? Damn, old suspicions were creeping back into my head. My boss said I needed to go to Cleveland on Friday afternoon and attend a meeting at 3 p.m. at our regional office. 3 of us were going from Columbus. After the meeting, the regional manager was going to take us out to dinner. I told Amy and Nicole I'd be back by midnight. "That's fine. I'll go out with some friends from school and probably stay at one of their places. I'll text my mom and let her know where I'll be." I was going to go to GNI to see Mary, but I won't stay late. "Honey, if you're going to drink after dinner, just get a hotel room and stay there for the night. We don't want anything to happen to you." The Friday meeting went well, and we finished a little early. We decided to go to happy hour and have a drink and some appetizers instead of dinner. I had just ordered the first round when the regional manager got a call saying that his child was sick and his wife was taking him to the emergency room. "Tom, for God's sake, if your son is feeling that bad, go help your wife. The big boss isn't here. We'll tell him you were a great host." My co-workers laughed and agreed with me, advising Tom to go home. When he left, I told the guys I was going home too. 2 others decided to stay and spend the evening together. I started to text Amy, but remembered that she was going to GNI, so I just drove home. I arrived around 8 to an empty house. I changed, settled on the couch to watch a movie and drink some Angel Envy rye. As I sat there, I heard a sound and realized it was coming from Amy's iPad. Her iPad was synced with her iPhone, so calls and messages appeared on both devices at the same time. I ignored it, but it rang again, and then several more times. Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked up the device. I opened the cover and entered the password, Nicole's birthday. There were several messages from Ginny. Amy: "Hey girl, I'm at Mary's. Where are you?" Ginny: "At home, hanging out with Dave." Ginny: "Ron's here. Want to come over?" Amy: "Yeah, but I'd better not. John's been acting weird lately." Ginny. But we had such a good time last time, you can't not come. Amy. You're bad. John's in Cleveland until late tonight. Ginny. Yeah, damn it! Come over here, let's have some fun. Amy. Okay, I'm on my way. Damn it. She's leaving Mary and going to Ron's with Ginny. I opened the Find My Phone app and saw that her phone was on the move. I checked her contacts and entered Ginny's information into my phone. I sat there watching her iPhone icon move as she drove to Ginny's. I reread the message that said they had a good time last time, which meant this wasn't the first time she had gone to Ginny's to play. I opened my contacts and found Diana's number. It had been saved several years ago when they took Nicole for the weekend. I called the number, and to my surprise, she answered. Hello, John? I'm surprised you called. Oh my God. Is Nicole okay? Yes, she's fine. Is Ron there? No, he's bowling for his company team on Fridays. It sucks because I'm home alone every Friday. Diane, I'm so sorry, but I think Ron is at Ginny's and Amy is on her way there to meet him. What? No, he took his bowling ball with him. He and Ginny's boyfriend Dave are on the same team. Diane, does he have location services turned on his phone? Yes. We turned it on when we were traveling a lot. Find him on his phone. I think he'll be at 1724 Timber Lane. That's Ginny's apartment. She fiddled with her phone for almost a minute. Damn it! That bastard lied to me. I can see Amy's phone there, too. I'm heading over. Do you want to meet me there? Sure. Your house is closer, so you'll probably get there before me. What are you driving? A black Honda CR-V. What about you? A blue Ram 1500. I'll find you. I found a parking spot and waited for Diane. I saw her big pickup pull up. She got out and walked toward me. I hadn't seen Diane in years. To say she had changed would be an understatement. I remembered her as a thin, tall woman. She was still tall, maybe 5'10" in her cowboy boots. I think she weighed well over 200 pounds now, so big, but not fat. John? My God, you haven't changed a bit. You're still as handsome as ever. I know this is a shock for you. I've doubled in size since we last saw each other. I've taken up women's powerlifting and gained a lot of muscle. I tried not to look at the Amazon standing in front of me. Wow, powerlifting, that's something. There's her car, I said, pointing at it. I ordered pizza, and the delivery guy should be here any minute. I'll pay him and take the pizza to the door. When they open, just follow me. The pizza guy arrived, music blaring from his car. When he opened the door, a huge cloud of smoke billowed out. He opened the trunk, grabbed the bag, and was about to slam the trunk shut when I said, "Excuse me." The guy flinched and dropped the pizza. Damn. I waved a $50 bill at him. Dude, it's okay. The pizza was just a joke. Take it out of the bag. You can keep the change. Really? Thanks, man. He handed me the box and drove away. Diane followed me to the door. I crouched down, covering the box with another box, and rang the doorbell. The door opened, and there stood an unfamiliar guy in boxer shorts. We didn't order... That was all he got out before I pushed him aside and ran into the apartment, Diane following close behind. Then the guy asked, Diane, where the hell is he, Dave? I threw the pizza on a chair and turned to help Diane with Dave. But there was no need. She had pinned him against the wall, squeezing his throat with her hand. She hit him in the face and asked, I asked where the hell he is? Dave pointed to the end of the hallway. Diane let go of him, walked past me, and rushed to the end of the hallway, opening the bedroom door. This time I hurried after her. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't what I saw. Ginny was lying on her back, and Amy was kneeling over her, her ass in the air and her face buried in Ginny. Finally, Amy realized something was wrong and rolled onto her side. I reached out, grabbed her hair, and pulled her to her feet. Get dressed and go home! She seemed about to argue with me, but Diana stepped away from Ron and said, Where's that bitch? I wrapped my arms around Diana in a bear hug, and Amy wisely decided to run away. At 6 feet 1 inch and 235 pounds, I'm not a small man, but it took all my strength to pull Diana out of the bedroom. "Diana! Diana! You have to stop! You'll be arrested if you don't calm down before the police arrive." She resisted a little while I was holding her, then pressed herself against me and sobbed. Why? Why did he do that? I thought we were fine. I thought he loved me. I held her while she cried. "Come on, you need to go. Go home. You shouldn't stay here when the police arrive." She gathered herself, ran to her car, and drove away. I went back to the bedroom. Ron was leaning against the wall, and Ginny was tending to him. He had a deep cut above his eye and a split lip. I figured he'd have a bruise covering his entire upper body in a couple of days. Ginny was still naked when I looked at her. "Is he going to live?" "Yeah. That crazy bitch could have killed him if you hadn't gotten her out of here." Ron struggled to his feet. "What did you do to Amy? Where is she?" "I didn't touch her. I sent her home. I thought it would give me time to cool off before I ran into her again." "John, man, she really loves you. It was just physical attraction. We've always been very attracted to each other, even when we were fighting." "Shut the fuck up, or I'll finish what Diana started." Ron stopped talking nonsense and let Ginny wipe his face. "You'd better take him to the emergency room and have his ribs checked out. I'm leaving before I change my mind about kicking his ass." Ginny asked, "Where's Dave?" I laughed. "After Diana finally let him go, he's probably hiding somewhere," I replied. I drove around the neighborhood, thinking about what to tell Amy. I stopped a couple of blocks from home and called Diane. She seemed calmer and was waiting for news from Ron or Ginny. I offered to take Ginny to the emergency room to get him checked out. It always takes a few hours, so don't worry if he doesn't come home anytime soon. The emergency room? Oh, I guess I got carried away. Damn, I hope he's okay. When I left, he was sitting and talking, so it's nothing serious. "Okay, John, I'm sorry about all this. What are you going to do?" "I'm getting a divorce. Today was clearly not their first time, so it's over. What about you?" "I don't know. I still love that bastard, so I'm not sure I can leave." "Well, do what's best for you. You don't owe him anything, just take care of yourself." "You too, John. Nicole's a grown woman, so don't worry about her. Just follow your own advice and take care of yourself." We said goodbye, and I drove home. Amy was sitting on the couch in her robe. Her hair was wet, so I assumed she had taken a shower. I went to the fridge, grabbed a beer, and sat down in the chair. She looked submissive, without tears, just sad. I waited for her to lift her face and look me in the eyes. "So, how long?" "About 3 months. Tonight was the 3rd night we've been together for sex. We've had dinner together 3 or 4 times and met up a few times for drinks." I shook my head. "You knew you'd get caught, and you knew how I'd react when I did. So why?" "I thought we were being careful. I sat here trying to figure out how we got caught this time. I know you probably came home early, but I thought GNI would cover for me." I just smiled at her through gritted teeth but didn't tell her about the iPad. "So you're in love with him again? Still?" "Oh, hell no, he's a jerk. I'm not even sure I like him, let alone love him." "So what the hell is going on, Amy?" "I have no idea. We've always been really attracted to each other. I just can't say no to him. I was doing pretty well keeping him at arm's length until Ginny came along. I've never been with a woman, and Ginny is bisexual. She and Ron seduced me the first time, and I was hooked." "So now you like threesomes? Why didn't you ask me about that? I think Ginny is very sexy." "Ginny is just an addition. I love having sex with Ron. I always have." "Why didn't you come to me and tell me how you felt instead of secretly meeting behind my back?" Of course, every man wants to hear from his wife that she feels an irresistible attraction to another man. I couldn't do that to you, John. I love you. I didn't want to hurt you. I convinced myself that you would never find out and I would get away with it. I needed to satisfy that need, but I need you too. Her words were like a knife in my heart. She was right. It was unbearable to hear her admit that she was hopelessly in love with Ron. I believed she didn't love him, but I knew she didn't love me the way I loved her. He must be a great lover because from what I've seen, he doesn't have much to boast about. No, she laughed, but there's something between us that binds us together. Listen, John, sex with you is wonderful. I'm not complaining. In fact, I even brag about you to the girls. It's just that Ron and I have this sexual attraction that draws us to each other. I nodded slowly. I see. And where do I fit into all this? I don't know. I definitely don't want to lose you, but I'm not sure I'm strong enough to stay away from Ron. I know this must hurt you, and I hate that, but I'm trying to be honest with you, at least now. Amy, you know me. I'm not the type to share, and I would never agree to some kind of swap with Ron and Diana, so I have no choice. On Monday, I'm going to see a lawyer and start divorce proceedings. Amy gasped and pressed her hand to her face. Oh, God, no! Please, John, there must be a way to save our marriage. She lowered her head and sobbed, then suddenly raised her head. Ginny. What if Ron and Ginny and I switched? You know Ginny has a crush on you. Or, you could be with both of us. I'm sure she'd love that. Please, John, there must be something we can do. I heard the desperation in her voice and saw it in her eyes. Maybe she wasn't lying. Maybe she really did love me. The image of Ginny popped into my head again. I shook my head. Ginny is a beautiful young woman, but she's not my wife. I'm not ready to share my wife with anyone, and besides, I can't do that to Diane. Amy sobbed loudly, covering her face with her hands. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Nicole wasn't shocked when I told her I was divorcing her mother. I feel guilty that maybe this all started because I told you what I heard at my mom's party. I just can't believe she could be so stupid. Don't feel guilty. You did the right thing. I caught her myself. You had nothing to do with it. I love you, baby, and I always will. I'm divorcing your mother, not you. I still want to be a part of your life. Dad, I love you. I know Ron is my biological father, but you're my real father. I think Ron loves me as much as he's capable of, but it's not the same as what we have. Mom said she's moving in with Ginny, and you'll stay in the house until I finish school. I want to stay here with you when I'm not at school. Is that okay with you? I hugged her. Of course, sweetheart, you can always stay with me wherever I live. Amy didn't argue with me about the divorce. I gave her money for her half of the house, and we split everything else 50-50. I think some men would have wanted to destroy her and get revenge on Ron. Well, from what I've heard from Nicole, Diane has Ron by the balls and made him move back to Florida with her. Amy sometimes calls me late at night, usually a little drunk, begging me to take her back. I still love her, and part of me wants her to be with me, but I can't forget what she did. I've tried to understand how she could risk everything for sex, but it remains a mystery to me. I haven't made much of an effort to find someone new. I just haven't been in the mood. I met Ginny at a bar near work. She still looks hot and asked me to go back to my place, but I left. Maybe in a couple of months. If I'm really horny, I'll give her a call. Nicole still stays with me when she comes home from school. She visits her mother, and it seems like they've rekindled their relationship, but it's not what it used to be. Some may ask how I can be so devoted to a child who isn't mine, but it's just pure love. There are millions of foster children and stepchildren in the world who are loved just as much as their own children. Nicole still calls me Dad, and she will always be my little girl. Jim. My wife, Connie, whom I had been married to for 4 years, was chatting at the kitchen table with her good friend and college roommate, Nellie Foster. Nellie had remained one of her closest friends since we all graduated from college 5 years ago. Her husband, Jeff, had been killed 2 years earlier in a car accident caused by a drunk driver, and she continued to turn to us for help and support. I was in the garage, tinkering with my old '66 GTO, which I just couldn't bring myself to part with and probably spent more time under the hood than behind the wheel, when their conversation became quite heated. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Nellie ran out of the garage, yelled at me, "Your wife is a stupid bitch," got in her car, and drove away. I looked up and saw Connie standing in the doorway with an angry look on her face and asked what was going on. She just shrugged and said they had different opinions, turned around, and went back into the apartment. I finished cleaning up my tools and drying everything, then went into the house and found Connie talking on the phone with someone. When she saw me, she turned and went out onto the patio so I couldn't hear. It was strange, but I didn't think much of it at the time. The weekend passed without incident, but Connie seemed a little distracted. On Monday, I had just started my work day when Nellie called and asked if I wanted to have lunch with her. This was very unusual, so I asked what was going on, and she said she needed to talk. I thought it might have something to do with the argument she and Connie had had over the weekend. We agreed on a time and place, and I went back to work. I arrived at the cafe at the appointed time and took a table in the corner where we could talk without disturbing others or being interrupted. Nellie arrived, saw me, and joined me. When the waitress brought us our drinks and took our order, I asked her what was wrong. Nellie sighed and began her story. When Connie and I were in high school, she met Ken Sample. Ken was new. His parents had recently moved from a small town up north. He was handsome, charming, and likable. He quickly became famous in sports, and although he didn't excel in any one sport, he was always on the field and became very popular with the guys. He and Connie were in several classes together and soon became good friends. After a couple of weeks, they started dating and soon became a couple. She confessed to me that they had been intimate, but nothing serious. He constantly pressured her to take their relationship to the next level, but she refused, saying that she was saving herself for her husband and no one else. Graduation came, and we all went our separate ways. Connie and Nellie went to state universities, and Ken went back north to a university near his old neighborhood. She met you in her junior year at State University, and the rest is history. Okay, Nellie, thanks for the history lesson, but I don't understand why we needed this mysterious dinner. Ken is in town, somehow tracked Connie down and got in touch with her. They had dinner together a few times and, from what I understand, became quite close. It seems he hinted to her that now that she's married and no longer a virgin, it's time she finally gave him what she's been denying him all these years. My God, Nellie, she can't be taking him seriously. She's much smarter than that. I can't believe she's thinking of cheating on me. Jim, I thought the same thing until she came to me on Saturday. She wanted me to tell you that we were going away for 2 weeks to a spa. I had to cover for her so you wouldn't suspect anything. I asked her what the hell was going on. She confessed that she and Ken had booked a 2-week spa vacation on the West Coast starting this weekend, and that she was finally going to give herself to him. I tried to tell her she was crazy and that I didn't want anything to do with cheating. She said it wasn't cheating, just old debts, and that if I was her real friend, I should help her cover for her trip. Well, you know how her request ended. I didn't help her. Jim, I'm telling you this because you're one of my best friends, and you supported me after the accident with Jeff. You help me with the little things. You take care of my garden, fix my car, do odd jobs around the house, and most importantly, you give me a shoulder to cry on when I need it. I can't stand by and watch her treat you like this. Nellie, I can't describe how I feel right now. It's just unbelievable. Thank you for telling me about this. I don't know what I'm going to do yet because I haven't had time to process this blatant disregard for our marriage vows and complete disrespect for me and our families. Believe me, She won't be happy if she continues down this path. We finished lunch. I thanked her again, and with a heavy heart, I returned to work. I had 2 weeks to prepare for the impending disaster, and I planned to use that time as best I could. I asked Stella, my secretary, to contact my boss Frank and schedule a meeting for today. Frank agreed to meet with me at 2:30 p.m. I couldn't help myself and told Frank the whole story. He couldn't believe it and asked how he could help. I told him I hadn't made any decisions yet, as I was still in shock, but that I would keep him posted. I went back to my office and asked Stella to come in and close the door. I told her what had happened, and she couldn't believe it either, but promised to help in any way she could. As I mentioned, I met Connie at a women's club party with Nellie and her boyfriend Jeff. We liked each other right away and hit it off like a house on fire. The 4 of us remained close friends. I asked Connie if she wanted us to be a couple and date exclusively, and she agreed, but immediately added that she didn't want to lose her virginity before marriage. That didn't bother me, as I was truly smitten with this girl and deeply in love. She never asked me about my previous relationships, and because of her statement, I never felt the need to ask her about hers either. I earned a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, and Connie earned a bachelor's degree in education. Nellie, Jeff, Connie, and I decided to have a joint wedding to save money, and my bachelor party and honeymoon were worth all the waiting. We started our life together and focused on our careers. I received an offer from a well-known aerospace company in Orlando and accepted it. Connie and Nellie found jobs with the local school board, Jeff landed a high-paying position at Disney, and we all moved to Greater Orlando. We started to get used to our new surroundings and different career paths. Once we settled in, we decided that any talk of family should be put on hold until we felt more comfortable. We rented apartments close to work, and life was good. Jeff and Nellie didn't live in the same complex, but they were only a few minutes' drive apart. Life was good, the sex was amazing, and I was on cloud 9 until that day came. The drive home was long and exhausting, with so many thoughts running through my head, and I didn't know how to solve this problem. Some might think I should talk to her and forbid her from doing it. But what good would that do? She would be offended by my interference, think that I treated her like my property, and I would be looking over my shoulder wondering what was going on behind my back for the rest of our lives. One thing I knew for sure. She had destroyed my trust in her, and now it was impossible to rebuild. I decided to see how things would unfold. I parked my car on the street, as we only had one driveway for Connie, and the GTO was in the garage, and walked up to the front door wondering what to expect. When I entered, I heard Connie talking on her cell phone and called out that I was home. Connie turned around, waved her hand, and went out onto the patio to continue her conversation so I couldn't hear. I noticed that this was the second time in a week. I went to the refrigerator, grabbed a cold beer, went into the living room, and relaxed in an armchair. 5 minutes later, Connie appeared, all excited, and began to explain that her friends from the women's club had planned a 5-year reunion at a spa on the West Coast and had invited all the sisters. I asked, "When is it?" "Not this weekend, but next weekend, from Friday afternoon to Sunday. I hope you don't mind. I really want to go. It'll be so much fun." "I would never stop you from seeing your friends and having fun. What makes you think that?" "I don't know, but we've never been apart, and I thought you might be a little upset." "Honey, we have our whole lives ahead of us. One weekend won't hurt our love. Besides, I trust you completely. You behave well, but you also know how to have fun. What time are you and Nellie planning to leave on Friday? I'll try to get home early to see you off." I thought she flinched slightly and couldn't look me in the eye. "Nellie isn't going. She had plans and can't change them." "She must be upset. I'm sure she would have liked to see all your old friends as much as you do. What a shame. Well, never mind. What's for dinner?" The game was on. The atmosphere at dinner that evening was tense, nothing specific, but the conversation was strained. After helping with the dishes, I went to the garage to immerse myself in my favorite pastime, working on my GTO. Connie peeked out and asked when I was going to bed. I replied that I would be in soon as I finished adjusting the lifts. A couple of hours later, I quietly slipped into bed, trying not to wake Connie. The next day, I realized that she had decided to betray me and that I needed to protect myself from the possible consequences. I met with my boss, Frank, again and asked for time off and a trip to our head office in Denver. This game of covering your tracks can be played by two people. I wasn't sure I could maintain control for the next 2 weeks, and I wasn't ready to sleep with that bitch again. Frank agreed to come up with a cover story for me and offered to keep Stella in the loop. After taking care of all my work, I made an appointment with a lawyer for the following week and began gathering and preparing the necessary financial documents. In addition, I paid off and canceled our joint credit cards, transferring half of the available balance from our joint bank account to my personal account. Connie and I had separate accounts and separate credit cards for personal expenses. Household expenses were paid from our joint account. That evening at dinner, I explained to Connie that I needed to go to Denver on business and that I was leaving on Monday and would be back no earlier than the end of the week, possibly later. I had important matters to attend to related to my current project. A look of relief flashed across her face, and she began talking about how much she would miss me and how long the week would be for her. The rest of the week and the weekend passed in a tense atmosphere, with us walking around each other, trying to avoid unnecessary conversation and personal encounters. We also avoided any physical contact in bed. Anyone with common sense would have realized that all was not well in the Miller household. On Sunday, I packed my things for the trip to Denver and left for O'Hare Airport the next morning, explaining that I didn't know when I would be back and that I would leave my car in long-term parking. I left knowing that I was ready to end this sham of a marriage. The meeting with the lawyer that day went as expected. No child support was required. The joint ownership of the house was not divided. But since our state does not recognize fault in divorce, and also because of the difference in our salaries, I would probably have to pay alimony. If that was necessary to get rid of this adulteress, so be it. I gave her all the financial documents and asked her to prepare the papers to file for divorce on the grounds of incompatibility. I said I would like to deliver the notice in person next Friday and asked her to have everything ready by then. She replied that there would be no problem. Everything was ready. After a leisurely lunch, I checked into the airport Holiday Inn Express and settled in. I decided to relax by the pool. After the obligatory phone call home, I decided to go to bed. That night, I couldn't sleep. On Tuesday, I met with the real estate agent and told him that I needed a one-bedroom apartment with a garage in a decent neighborhood at a reasonable price. The agent said he would check availability and get back to me. I then rented a storage unit near my current location to store the GRO and all my personal belongings. Everything was falling into place, but now I needed to finalize my plans for an important meeting on Friday. I might need some help. I had dinner and a few drinks at a restaurant near the hotel and enjoyed the evening alone. I returned to the hotel for another sleepless night. On Wednesday morning, I contacted Nellie and asked if she was free for lunch or perhaps dinner. She couldn't leave for lunch, but she would be delighted to have dinner with me. I asked if I could pick her up at 7 o'clock, and she agreed. I was ready for a good steak and made a reservation at Texas Roadhouse, a restaurant near her house. I spent the rest of the day reviewing lists and details that might need attention. Evening came, and I got ready to meet Nellie. I arrived a little early, knocked on her door, and she invited me in while she finished up. She looked amazing, and I told her so. I mentioned that I had made a reservation at Texas Roadhouse, and she was thrilled. We sat down, ordered drinks, and I started telling Nellie about what was going on in my life. She said she hadn't spoken to Connie since they had argued that afternoon. I told her about the class reunion that Nellie, for some strange reason, couldn't make it to, and she smiled slightly. She was surprised by what I had done and asked if I really wanted to go down that path. I tried to explain to her all the anger, pain and suffering I had experienced because of her blatant lies and betrayal, as well as because I couldn't live in that environment. She seemed to understand me and offered her support and a place to stay until I found another place to live. I explained one important point in my plan to her. I needed to know when she was planning to leave so that I could intervene and give her the divorce papers. Nellie said she would talk to the school administration and see what she could do. After thanking her, we continued our evening and enjoyed dinner. I drove her home, walked her to her apartment, and received a chaste kiss on the cheek with gratitude for a wonderful evening. D-Day 1. Nellie called and said she planned to leave for the coast around 4 p.m. on Friday and leave school early to pack and get ready for the weekend. I called Connie and told her I would be back late from my trip to Denver and would be flying in on a night flight. I told her she'd better be ready for a stormy welcome, and she faltered a little, stunned by the statement. I spent the rest of the day finishing up preparations, stopped by the lawyer's office to pick up the divorce papers, and got ready for my late arrival. Around 10:30, I called Connie and told her I had taken off from Denver and would be arriving in Oklahoma City early the next morning. She sadly informed me that she had started her period that morning, so the celebration of my return would have to be postponed. The lies continued. I drove to the East Coast, had a late dinner of seafood, and went to the movies to kill time. Early the next morning, I returned to Orlando, drove home, and entered what would probably be our house for the last time. I crept into the bedroom and got into bed. Connie didn't seem to wake up and continued sleeping while I tried to fall asleep. That day, I woke up in an empty bed, and the smell of coffee filled the house. I went to the kitchen and saw Connie dressed and ready for work. She said hello, poured me a cup of coffee, apologized for not waiting for me, and said she would catch up after the weekend. I said I understood, and that I had to go to work, and might not be back before she left. She understood, kissed me quickly, and left for school. As soon as she left the house and disappeared around the corner, I started getting ready. In less than 2 hours, everything was loaded into the GTO, or my Honda. I drove the GTO to the garage, locked it up, and called an Uber to take me home. Everything was ready for a hasty retreat. I parked the Honda in an empty parking lot near our house and waited for her to return. Connie came home at 12:30, and after waiting a few minutes, I drove up to her car and parked behind her. I quietly entered the house, sat down in the living room, and waited. I could hear her in the hallway gathering things she thought she might need for the weekend, humming a tune. After quickly showering and getting dressed, she entered the living room, dragging a bag with her overnight things behind her. When she saw me, she gasped, but quickly recovered and asked what I was doing at home. I'm still living here, depending on what happens in the next few minutes. Her face paled, and she asked me to explain what I meant. Then I decided to dispel her illusions. I know all about your weekend dates with your ex-boyfriend Ken, and I want you to know that if you continue in the same vein, there will be no turning back. The decision is entirely yours. The surprise on her face gradually gave way to anger. She looked at me defiantly and began her tirade. Damn it, Nellie and her big mouth, it should have been her. If she had kept her mouth shut, you wouldn't have found out. I would have come back to you and everything would have been fine. Nellie is trying to save you from yourself and save our marriage, and you're doing the wrong thing. I would have looked you in the eye and known right away that something was wrong. Now that we've had a heart-to-heart, the ball is in your court, so to speak. Honey, you have to understand, I feel like I owe this to Ken, considering how many times I sent him home with a black eye. He just wants to see what he's been missing all these years. It doesn't mean anything. It's just sex, and it will be over by the end of the weekend. There will be no more. I'll be home on Sunday afternoon, and I'll be your loving and faithful wife for the rest of our lives. That won't happen, honey. If you walk out that door, it's over. You don't owe Ken anything, but you owe me your loyalty. You remember your vow to give up everyone else. Once you break that, it's over between us. So once again, if you walk out that door, You walk out of my life. Jim, just because I'm your wife doesn't mean I'm your property. You can't treat me like a thing. I made these plans and I intend to carry them out. The reservation is already made and I'm going to use it, whether you like it or not. I stood up, took the envelope from the coffee table, and walked over to her. I demanded that she take off our wedding rings, saying that I didn't want them to be tainted by her, and handed her the envelope. She screamed, "What the hell is this? I'm not taking off my rings." I replied calmly, "Honey, this is a divorce petition that will be officially served to you on Monday morning at the office. And if you don't take off the rings, I'll take them off myself, and you won't like it." Jim, I just feel like I have to do this weekend. It won't affect our life or our love. I will always be your loving wife. We will raise our children and live to a ripe old age. You're wrong again, dear. I'm leaving, and the next time you see me, it will be in divorce court. So have a nice weekend and a happy life. I hope that's all you wanted, because you've destroyed our marriage. Just give me the rings and I'll start a new life. Abracadabra, you're free. Enjoy your life. I don't think she took me seriously, but when she handed me the rings, I was already standing at the door, got into my Honda, and started to drive out of the driveway when she started begging me. Too little, too late. I called Nellie, and she said she was waiting for me and had prepared the guest room. Later that evening, I drove past our condo and noticed that her car wasn't in the driveway, and correctly assumed that she had carried out her plan. The next day, I met with a real estate agent who showed me several apartments until I found one that met all my requirements. It seemed like it was available right away, and I could start moving in that same day. I paid all the necessary deposits, signed the lease, and got the keys to my new apartment. When I returned to Nellie's place, I told her the news and said that I would start moving the next morning and would need help buying new furniture. She seemed a little upset, but agreed to help. By the end of Sunday, I had unpacked my things, bought the basic furniture, and was ready to face my new future, the future of a single man. Nellie insisted that I come over for dinner since I didn't have any kitchen utensils, and I gratefully accepted. Dinner was delicious, probably one of the last home-cooked meals I would have for quite some time. I helped Nellie clean up, we had a glass of wine, and I headed back to my new apartment. Around 8:30, my cell phone rang with a familiar rhythm. "Hello, Connie. How can I help you?" "Where are you?" she began her tirade. I replied, "I'm home." "No, you're not home. I've been home for an hour and you're not here." I replied, "I no longer live at that address and I can assure you that I am at my new apartment." I think a light bulb went off in her pretty little head and she began to understand the situation. "Oh my God, Jim, you can't be serious. It was just one weekend and now it's over. I'll never see him again. It was just sex, not even good sex, and it's certainly not worth destroying our marriage over." "Connie, you started destroying our marriage after your first dinner together. You can't blame me for this. I tried. Your friends tried to convince you not to go through with your devious plans, but you continued down this destructive path, and now you have to live with the consequences. Tomorrow at work you will be handed the official documents. I suggest you hire a lawyer to help you review the terms of the documents and contact my lawyer if you have any questions. I hope we can resolve this quietly and quickly, without constant arguments and shouting. I believe I have offered you a fair settlement, and I hope you will accept. I wish you a pleasant life and hope that all your wishes come true. Goodbye." I ended the call and turned off the phone. I finished my evening chores and lay down in my new single bed, trying to fall asleep. Tomorrow would be a new day. Connie. When Jim hung up, the phone went silent. I immediately tried to call him back, but it went to voicemail. He sounded serious when he talked about divorce, and I needed to somehow change his mind and assure him that it didn't mean anything, that it was just a fling. I was still his mistress and soulmate. We just needed to work things out. I walked through the apartment and noticed that all his things were gone, and his car wasn't in the garage. Then I realized that my future with Jim looked very bleak. I thought it wasn't too late to call Nellie, She would surely support me and tell me how to calm Jim down and get him back home. "Hi, Connie, how was your spa vacation? I hope it was worth your marriage and your future, because you ruined both." "Oh my God, Nellie, what have I done?" "You have to help me. He left the apartment and won't talk to me. I didn't think he was serious about divorce and that he would eventually forgive and forget. We would have continued living, started a family, and lived happily, growing old together. Tell me what I can do to save our marriage." "Honestly, Connie, I don't think your marriage can be saved. I don't know what you wanted from him after you left. You just announced that you were going to make him a cuckold for the weekend, and he was supposed to welcome you back with open arms. You were going to give him the rest on Sunday night to show him how much you loved him? I don't believe you know your husband, Connie. No self-respecting man would forgive you for that without revenge. Now you have to pay for your betrayal. You should also know that Jim spent Saturday night here with me. I wanted to tell you myself before you found out from someone else. Of course, he slept in the guest room, being too much of a gentleman to take advantage of the situation, although I wanted him to. I slept better that night than I had in all the time since Jeff died, knowing there was a man in the house. You showed no love, no respect, not the slightest regret for one of the best men I've ever known. You probably shouldn't call here anymore because after what you've done, I no longer consider you my friend. You created this situation, and now only you can fix it. Goodbye, Connie." For the second time that night, the phone went dead in my hand. I just stared at the empty space, thinking about how I had ruined my life over a few days of mediocre sex. I had to figure out how to talk to him, how to make him understand how sorry I was, and what I was willing to do to make it up to him. He wasn't answering his phone. I couldn't get through to him at work. He worked in a secure building that you couldn't even approach without a pass. I didn't know where he lived, and my best source of information advised me to take a walk around the short pier. Maybe persistence would pay off, and if not, I'd have to contact his lawyer. Nellie. Jim arrived on Friday evening, and I helped him unpack his things in the guest bedroom. Then we sat down, me with a glass of wine, Jim with a cold beer. Jim looked very depressed, and I tried to help him cope with his pain. We ordered pizza, ate it, and had a few more glasses of wine and a couple of beers. After cleaning up and saying goodnight, I leaned over and kissed Jim on the cheek, and the dam broke. He hugged me and shook. I knew he was crying about his lost life, and I just held him tight. After 5 or 10 minutes, he started to calm down, and we let go of each other. He looked me in the eyes and said, "Thank you. I needed that. Thank you for being such a wonderful friend." We went to our bedrooms and went to sleep. I slept better that night, knowing there was a man in the house. On Saturday, I woke up and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Jim walked in just as the coffee was ready and asked if he could help. I said everything was fine and that I hoped he would like scrambled eggs and toast. After breakfast, Jim had a meeting with a real estate agent and left for the day. During the day, I thought a lot, convincing myself that I couldn't find a more suitable life partner than Jim. Until recently, I hadn't even thought about it. But now he was single, and I wanted him to know that I was, so to speak, claiming him. He returned later that afternoon and announced that he had found an apartment in a great location that met all his requirements and that he was moving tomorrow. He asked if I would help him find suitable furniture. Of course, I agreed, but I wanted things to happen more slowly so that he could spend more time with me. On Sunday morning, Jim packed his things and was ready to move into his new apartment. We left right after breakfast. After a day of moving, shopping, and arranging furniture, I told Jim that I would cook us a delicious dinner. He seemed pleased with the idea, and we returned to my place. After dinner, Jim helped me wash the dishes, and after a glass of sherry, he left for his apartment. I couldn't explain it, but I felt a sudden emptiness and regretted that he had left. I finished cleaning the kitchen and was about to go to bed when the phone rang. I looked and saw that it was Connie calling. This was going to be interesting. I let off some steam, told her everything I thought, and said that I didn't approve of her behavior over the weekend. After I said everything I wanted to say, I told her to delete my number, that I no longer considered her a friend, and hung up. I felt a little sorry for her, but she had made her bed, and now she would have to lie in it, and lie in it alone. Time passed. Jim. The divorce dragged on for 8 months. During that time, Nellie invited me out to dinner several times, and I invited her out to dinner, drinks, and dancing several times. We became quite close, but because of my marital status, there was no intimacy between us. The judge approved the final papers, and I was single again. I invited Nellie to a celebratory dinner, and she accepted. It was a wonderful evening with dinner and dancing, and the best was yet to come. We spent the night at her apartment, giving in to our pent-up desires, and it seemed that we were perfect for each other. 2 weeks later, I moved into her apartment, which was larger than my one-room place, as she and Jeff were planning to start a family. After 5 months of living together, I was ready to take the plunge again, and she agreed to marry me. After a small civil ceremony, we became husband and wife and had children. We now have 2 children, a 3-year-old boy and a 1-year-old girl. We are not sure if we want a third, but we have not made a final decision yet. Connie. I tried to contact Jim through his lawyer, but Jim refused to communicate with us, did not respond to letters, did not answer the phone, and did not agree to meet. I begged the judge to schedule counseling for us, but Jim said he did not want to attend any sessions, that it would be a waste of time because he would never agree to reconciliation. The divorce was finalized, and I was left with nothing. During this period, I tried several times to mend my relationship with Nellie, but my requests were again ignored. She ignored me at school and wouldn't even look in my direction. Once during lunch, I sat down at her table to get her attention. She got up and moved to another table, which drew several disapproving glances. Then I realized what I had done, and that it was probably time for me to leave. I left and went back home to my parents. At least they talked to me, no matter how disappointed they were. I heard through the grapevine that Nellie and Jim were dating and had become a couple. Later, I found out about their wedding and started crying over my stupidity. Nellie. Jim's divorce seemed to drag on forever. He often came over for dinner and a glass of wine. One evening, while he was helping me clean up, we bumped into each other and I stumbled. Jim quickly caught me and helped me stay on my feet. I think we both felt a spark between us. He leaned toward me and we kissed. We both knew we wanted each other, but we had the strength to hold back our desire, knowing that if we continued, we would end up in the same category as cheaters. On the day the final papers arrived, we went out to dinner, had a drink, and danced. When we got home, we threw ourselves at each other with unbridled passion, seeking satisfaction, and what satisfaction it was. This continued day after day, night after night. Jim moved out of his apartment and moved in with me. We got married, and now, as our 5th anniversary approaches, we have 2 wonderful children. I wonder if I should send Connie a thank you note. P.S. The GTO is now in my garage, although I don't spend much time on it because I try to keep it in a velvet garage most of the time.